What's going on, guys? It's Danny from Fantasy Stock Exchange here, and today I'll be going through my top waiver wire ads of Week 5 fantasy football, going over my 5 favorite running backs to target on the waiver wire, and my 5 favorite pass catchers, being wide receivers or tight ends, to target on this week's waiver wire. And if you guys want more information on the quarterbacks and the DSTs, I'll be talking about them later on this week on Friday's video, but I'm just going to kind of focus on the meat and potatoes because let's be honest here, when you're attacking your waiver wire, the main positions that you're looking to bolster are those running backs, wide receivers, and potentially a tight end if you missed out on a top option on a week-to-week basis. And for this video, I'm just going to be talking about guys that are currently 50% or lower owned that have really either shown out these past couple of weeks or are now entering a clear opportunity for increased fantasy football production. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm fired up. Let's start off with the running backs. But before we do that, as always, we're going to hit the intro. All right, so my number 5 running back to target on the waiver wire this week, you guys can see the graphic right over my head, but it's going to be J.D. McKissic, running back from the Washington football team, currently rostered in 39% of Yahoo leagues. And the reason why you're going to be targeting J.D. McKissic is because of the clear 2-minute drill and pass game involvement that we have seen from McKissic in recent games. Talk about this week against the Atlanta Falcons, that 34-30 win. Obviously, he scored that game-winning touchdown. But what really caught my eye here is that he logged 27 snaps to Antonio Gibson's 37 and 15 routes run to Antonio Gibson's 17. To me, when I look at this, he's the clear third down back and 2-minute back on this team. And we have seen, this guy's an adept pass blocker. We obviously know what he can do in the receiving game from last year, from this year so far. And especially in PPR, I think in PPR, he's a priority ad, but even in half PPR, due to this pass game utilization we have seen from McKissic, as well as the potential Logan Thomas injury that we could see affecting this team for these next few weeks, I think McKissic's locked and loaded role in this pass game is going to keep continuing. And I view him as an RB3, RB4 type for the rest of season value on standalone. And if anything were to happen to Gibson, he has even more upside from that point on. So I'd be willing to bid up to 15% of my FAAB on JD McKissic. But next person on the wire, we're going to be talking about Kenneth Gainwell, running back from the Philadelphia Eagles. And he's very similar to JD McKissic. You guys can see a few graphics on the screen, but Adam Leviton kind of tweeted this out. Kenny Gainwell is the Nyheim Hines for a Nick Sirianni system. He's played 35% of the snaps and leads the Eagles with a 12.3% target share so far this year. And Jared Smola of DraftSharks actually outlined just how he's actually been utilized in this past week. In week 4 opportunities, he tweeted out, Kenneth Gainwell actually had more than Miles Sanders. And in terms of snap percentage, Miles Sanders was only at a 64% figure, while Kenneth Gainwell was able to earn 39% of the snaps, a significant number for a player that does most of his work in the receiving game. And speaking of the receiving game, he's actually outproduced Miles Sanders thus far this year. Clinic Cap tweeted that out. Through 4 games, 46.8 points to Miles Sanders, 40.4. I think this can be a locked and loaded Nyheim Hines, James White type of asset rest of the season. And I think he can be that Nyheim Hines for Nick Sirianni scheme for the rest of the year. So I'd be willing to bid up to 15% FAAB, 20% FAAB, maybe even a little bit more if you're in a full PPR, because I do think this involvement is going to continue for Kenneth Gainwell rest of the season. But next person on the list, it's going to be Samaje Perine, running back from the Cincinnati Bengals, currently only rostered in 3% of leagues. And the reason why I really want to outline Samaje Perine is the recent news that Joe Mixon is currently battling what is described as a low ankle sprain and is considered week to week, according to Adam Schefter. Now, Zach Taylor actually went out and said that he considers it more day to day, but he was just saying the same stuff like this last year when we did see Joe Mixon miss the whole season. So the reason why I'm willing to bid 10 to 15, 15 to 20% on a guy like Samaje Perine is due to the sheer ambiguity of the situation. Because we know if Joe Mixon is off the field, Samaje Perine has handled the majority of the Cincinnati Bengals running back snaps. And even if Joe Mixon's expected back in 2 weeks, we have seen based off Mixon's health priors alone these past few years, this year already, that he is a very fragile running back. And the workload that he was given these first few weeks, I was always kind of curious to see how his body would hold up. Clearly, it's already due to the wear and tear so far. And if that's the case, if Mixon were to miss any time, I think Perine would be a locked and loaded RB2. So for a 15% FAAB bid, I think that's well worth your pick, especially to have stash on your bench. So I like Samaje Perine. Next guy on the list is going to be running back for the Baltimore Ravens. That's going to be Latavius Murray, currently rostered in 48% of Yahoo leagues, barely making this cut. And the reason why I have Latavius Murray here is pretty simple. I mean, we saw these first couple weeks what Tyson Williams was able to do. I mean, this is a very, very coveted Baltimore Ravens backfield. And Latavius Murray, off of his couple weeks getting signed, getting acclimated to the system, took over as the main RB1 for the Ravens this past week. 45 of 72 total running back snaps for Latavius Murray. Ran 16 of the 29 running back routes out of the backfield and also handled 18 of the 23 backfield carries. He wasn't the most efficient in this game. Don't get me wrong. I think he was at about 3.3 yards per pop, but he was going up against a stout Broncos defense and was still able to punch one in the end zone. If this is the lead back for the Baltimore Ravens, the upside is tremendous on a week-to-week basis. We saw Tyson Williams producing as an RB2 in fantasy, and I think Latavius Murray is a better player right now than what Tyson Williams is. And we saw it. I mean, Tyson Williams was a healthy scratch this week. The only concern I would have from bidding more than 20 to 25% of my FAAB on Latavius Murray is due to the fact that the Ravens may not just be committed to having this RB1 for the rest of the season. We saw what happened to Tyson Williams. First couple weeks, he was that main number one RB1 type of ball carrier for this team. And by week 4, he was a healthy scratch. So I'm a little bit tentative saying, okay, Latavius Murray, long-term play, he's going to be that RB2 rest of the year. But given his upside, given what he showed this past week, 20-25% of your FAAB to have a locked and loaded depth piece at the running back position, I absolutely love to have here. So love Latavius Murray. Go scoop him up. The final running back on this list is going to be Damien Williams, running back from the Chicago Bears, currently rostered in 10% of Yahoo leagues. And this is the biggest news of the Sunday slate. What happened to David Montgomery? At first glance, I thought it was a torn ACL. The way he was clutching his knee, the way he was holding his knee, the way Twitter was just reacting to this, I thought it was a torn ACL fully, but according to Dan Graziano, I'll probably show this tweet when I talk about it, but Monty's expected to miss 4 to 5 weeks and avoided that big, significant ACL tear. God bless. Thankful for him. However, if that's the case, if he's still missing 4 to 5 weeks, we saw what Damien Williams was able to do in his absence. Damien Williams garnered 19 snaps and 8 routes run in the backfield, so 27 total opportunities, if that makes sense, versus Khalil Herbert's 7-0 rate. And if you actually saw what Damien was able to do from an efficiency basis, he turned 8 carries into 55 rushing yards and 2 targets into a 2 reception for 15 receiving yard stat line in this game against the Detroit Lions. And with Montgomery expected to be out, I view Damien Williams as a locked and loaded top 20 running back until further notice. Think what Chuba Hubbard represents for the Carolina Panthers with Chris McCaffrey out. Only I actually think Damien Williams is going to be even higher than that because of the pass game utilization we have seen from him. We have seen from the Chicago Bears in feeding these running backs. So overall, I mean, top 16 to 20 production, I definitely think could be the case for Damien Williams over these next few weeks. And at this point, given the personal structure that I have at the running back position, banking on fragility, banking on low overall depth at the position, Damien Williams is going to be a guy I'm willing to spend 45, 50+% on, depending on how strict, how desperate your leagues are. I think you could probably get away with that type of bid. Again, if you're a more like competitive RB0 type of leagues, you might be having to bid more than that. But in the majority of your leagues, I think 50-55% should be able to get it done. And I think Damien Williams is well worth it for these next 4 to 5 weeks. So absolutely love Damien Williams, number 1 running back. Let's move on to the pass catchers, the wide receiver tight ends. You guys can see that graphic over my shoulder right here. But number 5 on the list is going to be Dawson Knox, tight end from the Buffalo Bills. And while I don't think Knox is going to end up being this top 7 tight end like Tunyon was last year, I think Knox is the closest thing we have to this year's Tunyon. I mean, he was a talented guy. He was a 3rd-round pick a couple years ago. He's in a high-octane, high-passing offense with the Buffalo Bills. And we have seen high elite touchdown upside for Dawson Knox thus far. I mean, he's recorded roughly 40 yards per game and a touchdown per game thus far. And his 11.5 half PPR point per game split has him as tight end 6 right now in fantasy football. And if you were to take that split and spread it across 2020, would have equated to the tight end 4. So I definitely think he's a worthwhile pickup at the tight end position, and you should be able to get him for about 5 to 10% of your FAAB, depending on how urgent the tight end position is in your league. So Off of Dawson Knox, let's go on to another New York resident. That's going to be Kadarius Toney, wide receiver from the New York Giants, who's currently only rostered in 1% of Yahoo leagues. And the reason why he's on this list is the fact that both Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton are actually dealing with hamstring issues. We'll see if they play on Sunday, but I extremely doubt it because you don't want to mess with a hamstring injury, particularly at the wide receiver position. And we saw Kadarius Toney finally shine when given the opportunity in week 4. He was able to produce a 6 for 78 stat line, 6 receptions, 78 receiving yards on 9 targets, and equated to a 22.5% target share on this team. And this Giants offense has actually looked functional, has actually looked better these past couple weeks. And I think outside of Kenny Golladay and Saquon Barkley, he can be a very good ancillary PPR type of piece to this offense. Again, it's tentative given how bad he played in the first few weeks, but if you need some depth, given the flash that he showed, he's still a rookie. Maybe he needed time to get his legs under him. I'm willing to spend 5 to 10% and take a stab that we did see that upturn for Kadarius Toney producing as a New York Giant. But on to the next, another New York team, oddly enough, all in common thus far. We're going to go to those Jets wide receivers, Jamison Crowder and Elijah Moore. And they both kind of click in together for me because I like both of them accordingly. But let's talk about Crowder. I mean, he returned, was an absolute stud, produced 15.6 half PPR points in his first game back this year. And I think he's here to stay, man. Honestly, you look at obviously Corey Davis can be on the outside. I think given the fact that we saw this Jets passing offense really see an uptick in efficiency and volume in the second half versus Tennessee, I think both these guys are extremely relevant, extremely high upside. I think Crowder can be a locked and loaded top 30 to 35-ish type of wide receiver in PPR, similar to what Sterling Shepard was doing for you at the beginning of this year. But again, obviously Elijah Moore is going to make this mention on my list because the talent is there, the opportunity is there. He's got top 35 draft capital. He dominated all preseason, and it's just the injuries with him. I want to see him fully recover. I want to see him fully get that rapport with Zach Wilson. But I think both these guys can be relevant, and I think that once Elijah Moore's back, he's going to be the Z receiver. Jamison Crowder is going to be that slot, and then obviously Corey Davis manning the X. So that's what I think is going to happen. If that's the case, I think both these guys, actually all 3 of these guys, if you count Corey Davis, can be very relevant in fantasy football. But on to the next number 2 wide receiver waiver pickup is going to be Darnell Mooney from the Chicago Bears, currently rostered in 38% of Yahoo leagues. And we saw this week he stepped up when Justin Fields was on the field, pun intended, recording a 5 for 125 line and an offense that finally looked functional. Again, I understand that it was against the Detroit Lions, but they were moving the ball. They were actually getting scoring opportunities. They are actually looking like a good, solid offense. And if that's the case, I fully believe Darnell Mooney is the clear number 2 target in this team. Obviously, you know what Allen Robinson is able to do, but Darnell Mooney has really established himself this year. He's looked good. He's looked efficient. And if this passing quarterback, if the stability at the quarterback position in general, whether it's Justin Fields or Andy Dalton, is able to suffice for the rest of the year, I think Darnell Mooney can be a locked and loaded top 30 to 35 wide receiver rest of the year. So absolutely love Mooney, currently only rostered in 38% of leagues. I'd be willing to spend about 15% of my FAAB. And I'm not sure if I mentioned it for the Jets receivers, but about the same. 15% of my FAAB should be able to get it done on either of those guys as well. So 15% for, or 10% for Toney, 15% for the Jets receivers, and 15% for Darnell Mooney. But the final player I am going to announce on this list, if you guys are fans of the channel, you know who's coming up. It's going to be Rashad Bateman, wide receiver from the Baltimore Ravens, currently only rostered in 25% of the leagues due to the fact that he is injured. But guess what? He's going to be coming back, and he has not yet played this year. I understand, but the talent, the draft capital, what he was doing in the preseason, we have seen what this guy is able to do on a football field. I could think he can be a tremendous locked and loaded top 25 type of talent at the wide receiver position. And if that's the case, I mean, we've really seen this Ravens passing offense open up this year to the point where Lamar Jackson, one of the most rush heavy quarterback in the league, a guy that's only thrown for over 400 passing attempts once in his career, is on pace for 496 passing attempts. To put that in perspective, if you take that split over a 16 game sample size, so 496 over 16 would be his pace. That would equate to 95 more passing attempts than any other season in his career. Oddly enough, his 2019 MVP campaign. And we have seen thus far 3 separate Ravens wide receivers post over a 60 yard per game clip with Marquise Brown, Sammy Watkins, and Mark Andrews all being able to do so thus far. And I believe when Bateman comes back, he's not only the most talented receiver on this roster, he's going to be able to step in and be that ultimate weapon that this team really needs from a stability standpoint on the outside. I fully believe that the talent meets the opportunity. Rashad Bateman is going to be able to eclipse Marquise Brown as this team's most valuable receiver. And attached to the right arm of, as I said, the 2019 MVP, I think Bateman is the clear-cut number one wide receiver ad this week. And in terms of FAAB, I mean, you could probably get him super cheap. If he's not already rostered in your league, 15% might be able to do it. And I think Rashad Bateman is going to be able to return wide receiver 3 type of value the rest of the year. So absolutely go scoop up Rashad Bateman. And as I mentioned, quarterbacks and DSTs will be talked about later this week. So you guys can see both those graphics. You guys heard all the video. If you made it this far, 15 minutes or so in, make sure you comment down below who your favorite waiver wire ad is this week. And as always, if you're new to the channel, hit that like button, as always, and subscribe. We are currently on the road to 10,000 subscribers, as always, about 7K right now. We'll see you later this week. We got start sits. We got the Thursday night live stream. We have plenty of material to talk about this week. So stay tuned. Buckle those seatbelts. Peace out, y'all.